Today's video is all about markers and brush pens, which ones I like best, how I use them, and of course, some fun floral illustrations. Hi friends, welcome back, and thank you so much for your support of this channel. This February, I thought it'd be fun to talk markers a little bit. I'm using them more in my bullet journal and my art journal. That's what this is, a little art journal sketchbook that I keep. You'll recognize some of that from the YouTube channel. And yeah, I want to talk about markers. The ones that I use most often are the Faber-Castells. These are them here, and I've actually bought these just one at a time, going to the stationery store and picking up 2 or 3. A lot of art stores sell them single like that. And then I also have this koi set that I really like. These are brush pens, and they have a really nice shape to the marker, as brush pens do. And we'll talk about that in a second. And it's a good color selection as well. You can kind of see there's some bright colors, but also some nice muted ones. And the thing about the brush pens is they have a beautiful shape. They have this large belly and a fine tip, just like a paintbrush. So they're great for drawing and lettering. And then I also have these Tombow pens. I just have 3. I just picked them up. And again, they're a brush pen. So they've got that nice shape, but they are a dual tip, which means you also get this really nice fine point. This is most of my collection, although I do have a couple chisel tip markers. These are also a dual point. So I get the chisel tip, which gives me this really nice square wash of color, and it's great for laying down big blocks of color. And then of course the other end, you get that beautiful precision. So I have a couple of those guys. Those are from a Canadian art store. And then I've got just a huge container of random like Sharpies, some Muji gel pens, some Staedtler fine liners, just all kinds of stuff. But what I want to talk about is bleeding or ghosting through the page. When it comes to your markers, you want to think about the shape of the tip, which we just talked about, and how much they bleed through, and if that really matters to you. So you can see those those chisel tips from Desir's, they really came through. But then I'll use this brush pen, the Tombow. I've got both tips there, nice brush pen, nice precision. And if I flip the page over, you can see it barely bleeds through at all. Like it really doesn't. I could use both sides of that page without concern. And I'll also show you the reason I like the brush pens is that beautiful brush head. You can get precision and you can get a nice heavy wash of color with one marker without even flipping it over to use the smaller head. If we take a look at the koi water-based brush pens here, again, that brush tip is really nice for drawing with, for lettering with. You get that precision, but you also have this sort of fat brush. And then finally, we have the Faber-Castells, which you see me use all the time in the Plan With Me videos. They're probably my favorite marker. They don't have quite as much of a brush tip, but they're kind of like a mini brush. So you get a nice amount of control with them. And you can see now if I flip over, the Tombows, the Kois, and the Faber-Castells do not bleed through. And that's really important to me because of bullet journaling, but it might not be important if you're doing posters or greeting cards. So here's what I mostly use and will be using today. The Faber-Castells, the few Tombows that I do have, and then the Koi set. Those are probably my favorites. The Faber-Castell and the Kois, I love them. They're what I use in my bullet journal. So we've talked about the shape of the marker, the tip, and about how much it bleeds through. Now let's talk about paper. So this little Strathmore sketchbook I love. I use it all the time for all of my pen drawings. It has a good amount of texture. The paper has this nice tooth to it, so it allows me to have a lot of control with my drawings in pen. But when I start drawing on this paper with marker, it doesn't go as well. This doesn't look terrible. It looks okay, but the textured toothy paper really soaks up the marker, so when you start trying to blend your colors, it just doesn't look quite as good. What you want for markers is a smooth, almost silky paper, like most bullet journals have, or cardstock, or even computer paper will give you better results because it has no texture. So I'm just doing some examples here. That's why we're kind of moving quickly, but I have this cardstock, so I'm gonna make a little example card, and you'll be able to see, like, I'm not doing anything special to lay down the marker. I'm kind of scribbling and I'm blending a little. I'm layering a couple different colors. I'm just gonna do my usual flowers and leaves. But because the cardstock is so smooth and has really no texture, it takes the marker really beautifully, and it's also easier for me to move the marker. You can see when I'm using the brush pens, I'm able to do wide areas like leaves and petals, and then I'm also able to use just the tip of that brush to do like very fine little branches and stems. So just like a paintbrush, those brush markers offer you a lot of precision and control and choice. So that's what's really cool about them. But the marker just goes on to the cardstock really smoothly and nice. And another thing I love about markers is that they layer really nicely with pen. So if you love to draw with pen like I do, you can always add that sketchy black line, and it all just kind of fits and flows. And because this cardstock is smooth, it accepts the pen really nicely and easily as well. And as I was saying at the beginning of the video, these brush markers, not only are they great for doing your coloring projects, but you can do some lettering with them as well, which I absolutely love. So they kind of give you double duty. So now let's take a look at this one. You can see it's fine, but it just doesn't have that smooth look that you want when you're using markers and pens. It reminds me of when I was a kid and I had construction paper and computer paper, and construction paper just didn't respond to the markers as nicely. So think about your paper and your brush type when you are getting started with markers. So now that we've talked a little about paper and marker types, and I've showed you what I like to use, I want to do a little project in my art journal. And I start most of my marker projects by choosing a color palette. I do the same thing with watercolors, with pencil crayons. It's just good to know the colors you're going to be working with and to see them together ahead of time. So my idea today is to do this little daisy wreath. And so you can see I've got some grays and yellow for the daisy flower. And then I was thinking green leaves, but then I thought maybe blue leaves would look cool because blue and yellow are opposite on the color wheel, so they have a nice contrast. And then I kind of thought, no, I want to go with green. So I'm just playing around here. I can just try different things and kind of picture the outcome and layer the markers a little as well to see how they look. So doing a bit of prep is a good idea. Today I'll be using greens, grays, and that beautiful mustard yellow for my daisies. Now I am starting by simply drawing an oval right in the center of the page. Keep that oval tight, like don't let it become too big. You don't want this huge wreath. And then I had to erase a bit because my oval got quite messy. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to quickly sketch out just a whole bunch of daisies. Some of them you can see are a full circle with the full fanning out of petals, and then others are just a semicircle, a half circle with like 3 or 4 petals on just one side. And I think including those 2 different illustrations of the same flower just helps your whole wreath, your whole drawing look a little bit more dynamic and engaging and natural and free. And so I've also switched up the size of the flowers as well, and that's going to help with that natural look. Once my sketch is done, and it's just a very quick sketch, let's be clear, I want to erase some of my excess pencil, and then I'm going to come in with my gray marker and I'm going to start shading each flower. And I do that by adding some gray marker around the center of the flower, around the stamen. I also like to color in one side of a petal sometimes, but because daisies are a white flower, I don't want to get too heavy with the gray. And the next I'm going to come in with that beautiful sort of mustard yellow color, and I'm just going to add a bit of shading on the center of the flower, and I'm adding this bit of marker by just dotting it onto the page. So I don't want it to look too heavy, and doing a bit of stippling or dotting can help with that heavy-handed look. And finally, I am using that light mossy green, and I'm just following my pencil marks, and I'm adding green to kind of fill in the entirety of this wreath. The green really brings everything together. I'm adding stems and branches joining all the flowers, and then I've got these beautiful wild little messy leaves kind of going off in every which direction, and I think it gives a nice lively quality to this wreath illustration. Remember, when you're doing the leaves, kind of take them off of that circle, get them to move outward. And that's what it looks like when all the leaves are filled in. So now I'm thinking I was going to add a black line to finish this illustration. But now it feels like it might be too heavy. So again, bring out the scrap paper. I'm going to draw a daisy quickly here, and then I'll try adding the Pigma Micron to it. I mean, it looks nice. It gives that finished look to those white petals, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe gray wouldn't be better. And I have 3 gray pens here, as you do. And so this is Le Pen, which is the brand. And then I have a Staedtler Triplus fine liner, so I'll try that. So this is why scrap paper is so important when you're doing your drawings. You always want to be able to test things out, but not on your good copy. So at this point, looking at that, I like the Le Pen, the lightest one, I think is the best. They all look nice, and even the black line has a wonderful sharp quality, but I'm going for the lightest color, and I love the way that looks, and it's going to keep the illustration looking really free and really fresh and really light, and looks a bit like spring, which is nice considering it's February. So yeah, I'm going to go around my initial drawing, and I'm just adding the, I like a sketchy line to finish. I like to finish a watercolor painting, a drawing, anything really, but marker especially I think really benefits from this finishing touch, and especially these white flowers, it really helps get them to jump off the page. And with the gray marker shading, I think the effect is really nice and it's not difficult. So part of what I wanted to show in this video was to talk about the different markers and brush pens that I like, but also how I use them, how I mix them, what other products I use in conjunction with them. And definitely for me, adding pen to my marker is practically a must. Okay, at this point, I want to just add a bit of that darker green, the Koi. This is like just a touch darker than the Faber-Castell. And I just want to add a little extra detail. I didn't really add much gray pen to the leaves, and I think by simply adding a bit of darker green, I'll have enough contrast and enough depth and darkness in my wreath. Yeah, so that's it. That wreath is all done. I'm not quite sure what I'll put in the middle yet, but I'm really liking it. And I really hope that you enjoyed listening to me talk a little about markers and brush pens, and hope that you'll give them a try in your bullet journal as well if you're journaling this year. Thank you, patrons, for watching, and as always, thank you for your support.